true astrology is meant to be lived. It's not just meant to be understood technically or have a fancy chart reading. It's only when you start living the knowledge and the symbolism and the truth of astrology that you will start to see how everything in your life makes more sense on a broader scale. And one beautiful opportunity to do so is to look into the incoming new moon in Cancer at 22 degrees, happening on the 14th of July. In this video, I will introduce you to the astrology of this new moon, what it might mean for you personally, how it can affect you, the opportunities, possibilities that this lunation gives you. In the second part, I'll take you through the Sabian symbol of this time, which I think is very important as well to look into. And then towards the final chapter, I will give you some remedies, things, herbs and rituals that you can work with under this current sky. So let's dive right into it. So now let's look to the sky and the astrology of this incoming new moon. So first and foremost, it's a new moon happening in Cancer at 21 degrees and 59 minutes. And so we round it up to 22 degrees in Cancer, and it's happening on the 14th of July 2026 at 11:43 a.m. in my time zone, Paris. But if you live somewhere else in the world, obviously set your chart to that time zone instead. And first and foremost, what's interesting to know about new moons is the symbol of new moons. Every month it's happening whenever the sun and the moon meets up in the same degree at the same zodiac sign. And that's also where the moon appears to be not visible from Earth, or at least what we can see is sort of like a dark shadow of the moon in the sky at that moment in time. And what I like you to visualize is that this is also a time where the sun and the moon is sort of merging their energies. And I always say the darkest is always darkest before dawn. So I feel like new moons are this point in the night where it's darkest just before you start to see the line of light in the horizon. And so whenever we have a new moon, it's important to know which sign it's in, what degree, because it will activate different levels of both consciousness and feelings, emotions, mental activity within yourself, also depending on your personal birth chart. And whenever we have a new moon in the sign of Cancer, what's interesting to look for is everything that is related to, first and foremost, the moon itself is, the ruler of Cancer. So it's in its home sign. It's very emotional. It's also governing the fourth house of home life and the maternal line. It is asking you to connect to your emotional well-being, how you nurture yourself, whether you're being honest about how you truly feel, because that's something that seems to be a lot of trigger points for modern humanity, is that we are being trained out of our intuition, and we are also being trained out of using and utilizing our emotions in a healthy way. It seems to be a point in time where understanding, having some emotional intelligence, both towards other people and towards ourselves, is very vital in the evolution of mankind. The one thing to pay attention to with this new moon in Cancer is definitely connected to a story that seemed to be unfolding since December last year, because at that point we had Jupiter, who reached an exact degree in Cancer while also squaring Chiron in Aries. So that seemed to have initiated a process of emotional healing, maybe around old wounds, old emotional triggers, about your vulnerability, and also the stories that you maybe carry or tell about yourself. Another thing that I find really potent about this time is the question on whether the emotions you are carrying are your own. Perhaps they are part of a broader family pattern or connected to your maternal line, lineage-wise. So pay attention around this new moon, whether old memories comes up, if you suddenly have something that you didn't think about for years and it's sort of like hitting you in an emotional way. This could be really worthwhile to look into, because if you had similar emotions or trigger points or things coming up from you back in December, this is a clear invitation for you to look at it with new eyes and have a sort of emotional release. Also, if we add up to the fact, when you look at Mercury, you can see it's in retrograde in Cancer, and it's also very closely accompanying this new moon. It is sort of like Mercury is asking us to not rush forward because it's in retrograde. It's like you cannot move forward before you have done some inner assessment work, before you have asked yourself a few questions of your own limitations, because what really holds us back as humans are whenever fear is prevalent. And fear, that's an emotion that is, to some level, fear is what keeps us alive, because we are not jumping off a cliff and, we have a fear of death. But in many ways, fear is not rational in the human experience. It's an installed emotion that is prevalent in order to control us, in order to both be controllable and control us. So that's a little bit to think about under this current sky as well. I would also say, try to see if you can revisit some of the inner narratives that you are telling yourself, because our brains just seems to copy what we have been thinking of the day before and the day before, and there's actually just a very little sense or window in time where you can consciously sort of reprogram those narratives. And in a new moon in Cancer, emotional narratives are a really good thing to look at, because a lot of the emotions, particularly connected to tough emotions like betrayal and fear, are something that can really hold you back in life. So this moon is an invitation for you to rewrite the narrative and start feeling new emotions in regards to that. There's also another aspect when we look to this chart, which is you can see that Mercury is square Saturn in Aries right now. So Saturn, the great father of time, he asks us to grow up emotionally. He's not coming in to punish you, but he's also coming in to hold you accountable for your emotional landscape. It's easy to say, I am like this and I feel like this because that happened to me. But the true maturity is to reassess the situation and know that in this current moment, you are not the equivalent of what happened. You keep repeating that story, and therefore you stay in that emotional landscape. Another thing to pay attention to is that Saturn is not here to reward self-punishment. It's here to make us take responsibility for ourselves. So when I say maturity and responsibility, I do not mean it in a lifted finger kind of way. You need to do this, because then that energy will not be harnessed in a healthy way, and it will turn into self-punishment, which is never a frequency you want to be on. But what you want to look out for is that there is an invitation for you to take emotional responsibility and regain some empowerment through perhaps writing an old emotional narrative, so that you will reach out on the other side of this new moon feeling much more light, much more aware of where you are going. But definitely this new moon is a point in time where you can take a little bit of inner assessment and do it to everything regards the fourth house. I will also say that there is a theme around still processing the past, like that our inner world is trying to keep up with the very fast-paced moment that we are living right now. So it's almost like there is two different currencies happening right now. We have a fast forward moving energy with all these Aries initiations, and then at the same time there is a processor in the background trying to still process the past and get us to a level of self-awareness, self-understanding that we can actually benefit from, rather than staying in a karmic loop, which is something I'm very passionate about, because one of the reasons that we choose to reincarnate in this life is that we have a certain mission, we have something that our soul longs to and desires to experience, and therefore we have sort of a northern star in the sense of our north node. That is what the souls strive towards. And whenever we have road bumps and things that seems difficult, that is exactly the point in time where you should say, oh, here's a possibility for me to grow. And whenever we have transits in the sky that are sort of supporting that growth in specific ways, we can really benefit from tapping into those energies. And right now, you will be supported in regards to emotional well-being, processing, rewriting your narrative, and start inviting in new emotional experiences in your life. There's also an interesting pattern when we look to the outer planets and what they are doing, because first and foremost, you can see here we have Pluto in Aquarius, then we have Neptune in Aries, then we have Uranus in Gemini, and Jupiter moving into Leo. So it is that they are all together describing like a completely new chapter, both in your personal life and for humanity. So it's like you can sense that there's a new era that is arriving alongside this emotional processing. So you will experience new ideas, new identities, new sides of yourself, new ways of creating even, and all of this is happening at the same time of you being in an emotional process of the old world, so to speak. So just keep in mind that this new moon is a sense of having, one leg in one point in time and another leg in another point in time. And the choice that you are making emotionally in this moment is important, because it is the choice that will either make you cling on to the past or spiral you into the new future of possibilities. Let's take a look at the Sabian symbol for this 22 degrees in Cancer. Just so you know, Sabian symbols are quite interesting because it's a symbolic language system that sort of assigns one interesting image to each of the 360 degrees of the zodiac signs. So in that way, we can have a add-on depth to each natal planet or anchor or whatever it might be degree-wise. So when we take a look at the 22 degree Cancer, you can see it's saying uncertain expectancy. Our dreams may come true, and yet they may not. We have to find a way to come to terms with that. So it's interesting, right? So it's saying that it's a young woman awaiting a sailboat. And you can look to the colors of this image as well and see what you personally get out from this picture, what emotions it might evoke in you. I would say that when I look to this, and especially in regards to this new moon, I get the sense that this woman is preparing herself emotionally to go on this boat, to take the leap of faith and sail into different shores. It reminds me very much about the Six of Swords as well in the tarot card, where a woman has already boarded the ship or the boat without any luggage and is sort of ready to just take a leap of faith to go to the other side. So to me, what comes with this Sabian symbol is definitely the ability to stay within the void between what has existed and what is about to be birthed. I think that liminal space is one of the hardest things for humans to master, because it's a time of uncertainty, and at the same time it takes great mastery to be able to hold yourself in a calm space where you do not panic and go back to old ways when you know you have outgrown them, and at the same time that you keep your vivid imagination and your mind set on what you know in your heart is coming in. So that's just another layer that we can add to this lunation in Cancer 22 degree, happening on the 14th of July 2026. And finally, I just want to introduce you to a few remedies that might be helpful for you to integrate throughout this new moon. So whenever we have a new moon, or a full moon for that matter, I would say that the effect of it is still very highly active 1.5 day before and 1.5 day after. So whether you do the ritual on the exact date is not so important. So first and foremost, because it's activating our roots, our ancestry, our emotions about, security and safety and home and family and our belonging, I would say that one thing to, for instance, journal about is, questions such as, what makes me feel emotionally nurtured? What emotion have I been carrying for way too long and I'm ready to let go of? Am I feeling emotions around me from other people, or perhaps even memory emotions from my maternal line? And if so, could I choose to let them go? So any questions, because what is really important about the process of journaling is to ask the right questions. Whenever you ask a new question that goes deeper, that's when you can unlock deeper layers within yourself as well. Another thing that you can do for this new moon is that you can create a little altar. For instance, you can use like a silver or a white candle just to symbolize the colors of the moon, which is also the ruler of Cancer. And you could put some, meaningful photos or objects from your family of origin, just to offer your gratitude and ask for guidance. And if you are not in contact with your family of origin, which I know some people feel very triggered around these subjects, what I can suggest for you is to instead call upon your spirit guides, call upon your angels and protectors and people watching over you from the other side to be of guidance for you. You can also make moon water, which is quite interesting because usually we think about moon water being charged on the full moon, but there is a potent energy around the new moon as well, where if you place some water outside under the sky when it's new moon, you can really let the molecules of the water be, infused with that energy. And a couple of herbs and crystals, also very potent for this time. I could recommend chamomile, lemon balm, jasmine, rose, white willow, cucumber, watermelon, especially for those of you who are in the northern hemisphere where we have a hot summer right now. And then finally, I would say also white lotus. And what you can do is you can make either cold or warm tea infusions with those herbs. Crystals that are really good for this new moon would be moonstone and selenite. Selenite is especially cleansing and helps you with clarity. So perhaps if you are feeling very emotional and feeling that in this moment in time there's a lot that needs to be detoxed emotionally, selenite is definitely a good one. A classic is also rose quartz and clear quartz to sort of amplify your self-love, compassion for yourself, and amplify your intentions. So those are the ones that I would go with. And if you're someone who likes to work with sounds or colors, something like white noise is especially good to listen to. You can also just in general embrace colors or make paintings with silver, pearl, like soft blue, a little bit of sea green and pale gray would be particularly good as well. And just a final little tip that I have for you is that if you are someone who is particularly sensitive to your senses, it might be a great add-on to work with essential oils such as jasmine, rose, chamomile, lavender, sandalwood for a bit of grounding as well. And so what you can do is that you can incorporate a few of these things in a little moon ritual. You can set your prayer. Sometimes it's even enough to just say, help me release the emotional burdens that do not belong to me, and then just watch what happens. It doesn't have to be complicated to make rituals. What I always tell people is that a ritual is a way of living, it's a way of being. A lot of people tend to connect it to more of a consumeristic mindset of setting aside a specific time to do it and have specific objects. But this even though I recommend different things, I do not recommend for you to become materialistic about it, because to work with rituals and symbolism is a way of being, a way of living. It's something that you can incorporate naturally in cycles of life, because it is just good ways of working with the energies. So I hope you enjoyed this little take on my new moon in Cancer, and if you do, please like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me out to grow quite a bit, and I hope to meet you in another video. Bye for now.